and welcome to Circle Time, the Early Years podcast. I'm Glenn Denny. Now, we know that helping children navigate their understanding of new and potentially difficult situations can be tricky, but often it can take the power of a good book to unlock that understanding. And that is exactly what my guests on this episode are all about. Welcome to Circle Time, Clare Helen Welsh and Kiernan.
Hi.
Hello.
It's lovely to have you both here. Now, Clare, I'll start with you. You started, well, it's kind of, I'm going to call it a movement, but it's a website. There's everything out there. There's all that information. A program called Books That Help. It sounds simple. Tell us about it, though.
Yeah, so I was a former early years teacher, turned children's author. And initially I wrote lots of different kinds of stories, so funny, educational, but I found myself drawn to writing books about big themes, difficult issues. So a child that might live with dementia in their family, somebody going through a difficult illness such as cancer. And I kind of just started reading and I guess been really drawn to the power of using a book to explore really challenging times with children. And we got some lovely feedback from families who said, thank you so much for writing this book and for showing, my child that they're not the only one going through hard times. And I thought there's something in that, just showcasing what a fantastic range of books there are out there and how you can use them to navigate tricky times with children and actually grown-ups as well, also resonate with some of the books. So yeah, we started a website. We review books and categorize them by subject. Sometimes they're big things like grief or loss or divorce, and other times it's just things like sharing, shyness. So a really wide spectrum of topics, and we champion the books and the people behind them.
Sounds brilliant. Now, Cara, you kind of came on board as well, didn't you? So your kind of background is you're an educator, but you're now in book promotion. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So over the years, I've always been aware of Fed, but always been a big fan. And I noticed that she started this website called Books That Help, and it's absolutely brilliant. And what I noticed quite quickly is that I felt like it needed more reach, it needed more awareness, because it's absolutely brilliant. There's so many books, themes. As an educator, I used to get so many requests from parents saying, my child, they're having a new sibling. Can you suggest something to help? And it's brilliant because now I signpost the website all the time. So I dropped into Claire's DMs and such and said, can I help you basically with the reach? So I helped Claire set up the Instagram account, which is growing rapidly. And that helps with our reach in terms of not only parents, educators, to really showcase the books that are on there in different ways. And we've started some new initiatives as a result of that as well. And I'm sure Claire will talk to you about authors that help in a second and things. But that's where I've come on board. So we've also branded it and made it very clear. And we've also now added resources to the site as well that were there already. But again, I just help support Claire really in her capacity. She's already a very busy children's author and is doing this obviously voluntarily. And I love what it stands for as well. It really champions a range of authors, but also books that you might not have already heard of. We all tend to go to the same books, I think, as educators. Yeah, so that's really good as well.
That's exactly what I was going to say. As an educator, I mean, I'm an advisor now, but I'm still at heart and always will be. And I think probably you two as well. You're different, slightly different career paths, but at heart, you're still an educator. And I think you're right there that we do tend to go to the same bits. I mean, I said just before we started recording, it's like my go-to book for emotions is always going to be The Colour Monster. But actually, it doesn't always resonate with children. So this is where it's quite handy, isn't it, Claire, that you've got a whole category. You've broken the website down into categories as well, haven't you?
Yeah, because there are an enormous number of fantastic books on there. And I just wanted to help people find them as quickly and easily as possible. So breaking down emotions, it can be things like anxiety, worries, fears, but it could also be, bravery, it could be jealousy. There's so many things inside that. So yeah, we've tried to make the website as easy to use as possible, with some really great reviews, I think, that sort of summarize the book and what they offer. And as Cara said, yeah, we've got resources for some of our favourite books that help. So if you wanted to take a book into the classroom and use it, as a lesson or as a circle time activity or just a story time, and you wanted some ideas for core provision, we've added some possible activities that you could use to extend the themes of the book in play.
Yeah, because that's always handy. It's like, it's not necessarily the reading of the story. There's if you do other activities with it, it generates more questions from the child, which is them trying to process whatever information or whatever understanding they need. For example, I think, Cara, you said about a new baby. That's quite a familiar topic within early years, that, you get a new sibling and all of a sudden there's that jealousy coming in. It's like, what's going to happen? And there's a lot of things for them to process. But if you've got the book, which is a starting point, and then the activities that go with it, then that's a great way of the child asking the questions, which can then be supported by the educator.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also it's great because the website is suited not only to educators, primarily we want to raise awareness that it's there, but it's to also help parents and families. So whether it's signposted by the educators or you go there directly as a parent. So what Claire also put on the site is a top tip to kind of using the books that help as well, which is really good. And it's really practical tips to share that reading moment and promote discussion as well. So yeah, I think it's two pronged as well. So it's sort of different audiences that can be used in the same way. And that's why we use that scaffolding to help the teachers in us. We can't help ourselves.
I think as well, Claire, it's become quite a nice, like you say, it's growing and growing, and the number of books that you're reviewing and then adding to it. Do you get a lot of suggestions from other educators saying, "Oh, I've read this book; it's really, really good"? And does that kind of lead your kind of journey on this as well?
Yeah, we've had a couple of things recently where there was an event going on. I think it wasn't Empathy Day, but it was something like that. And someone got in touch and said, "Can you recommend some books on respect?" And actually, we didn't have that category on the website at the time, so we went away and we asked for recommendations, and then we created a new category, for this particular person, but also for other people who were doing the kind of things. So for books that helped third birthday, so it turned 3 in August, we did, well, thanks to Cara, I should say, a really fantastic social media campaign where we asked people to recommend books that helped them, that helped them personally, or someone that they knew, and do a very short, sort of like a couple of line review about why they liked it so much. And it really, I was surprised that it wasn't just the same old books that I'd read and knew or loved. There were a lot of new titles that I hadn't come across before. And from that, we added some guest reviews to the site. So some of the reviews now are from people who've recommended them to us. So that was a really nice touch.
Yeah, that's absolutely brilliant, because then it opens it out a little bit more. But there was something you just said there. It is interesting that, I've said it before, that we tend to just, focus on the same books because they're tried and trusted for us. But sometimes it's taking the educator slightly out of their comfort zone. Do you find that happens as well, do you think?
In terms of getting using a book that's different, you mean?
Yeah.
In lessons. Yeah, I think when I was the same. I used to have favourites. It wasn't necessarily that I was out of my comfort zone. I just loved using certain books, and I knew how that they were, how they were responded to in the classroom. And maybe there's a little bit of safety there, but I had it in my head how well it would work. And of course, new books are being published all the time that are equally brilliant, with diverse voices and new illustrators and new content. And also, I guess what children are looking for, and the world is changing quite rapidly. So I think it is really important to keep up to date with what's new. And thousands of books published every year. And at the moment, we're doing about 4, 5, 6 new reviews a month. So over the year, there'll be a lot of new content. Even if you just sign up to the newsletter, we always put our new reviews monthly in a monthly newsletter, so you can keep abreast of what's new and out there. Because obviously teachers are really busy, so we know you haven't got time to necessarily go out and buy lots of books or visit bookshops and libraries. So the newsletter is quite good if you want just what's new this month. We put the top ones that we've found in a newsletter.
As well, just to add to that, you as educators, you never quite know what's around the corner. So you may have a child join your class and they're experienced something that you've never experienced with a child as an educator before. Perhaps it's grief, perhaps it's separation. So you might not automatically have a book or something that comes to mind. So that's the great thing about the site. You can go straight on it. But equally, in the current world we live in today, so many things appear. Children ask questions, children want to know more. And again, there's lots of books on there that you can relate to potentially world events that are going on or something that's happened. So we've kind of done the initial work for educators by having the reviews on there, having have the resources and things as a starting point. So that really helps as well, I think.
I think so. I think the reviews part of it is what makes it slightly more unique. You could sit there and you could Google, I want books on emotions, and you're given this great long list of books, but you don't know which one's suitable. But I think because they're human reviewed, I think and with educator background, I think that's the important key for other educators to come in and go, actually, this is what I'm looking for. But equally, I was thinking there as well, it's not just about choosing the right book for the child. It might also be that book's helpful for the educator because it might be teaching them something about a particular faith or a festival or something that they don't understand. Is that kind of something that was in the back of your mind, or was that forefront or equal to the initial idea behind it, Claire?
I think initially it started, I'm delighted that teachers are finding the site. I couldn't be more thrilled that people are finding it and using it. But initially I probably did have parents and guardians in mind. When you want to understand something, or you're not sure how to talk to a child about something that yourself is actually quite tricky, emotional, and actually, if I'm really, really honest, my uncle had a brain tumor and we knew it was terminal and we knew he was going to pass away. This is kind of how I got into writing these difficult books. And my children were asking questions, and I actually, as a grown-up, really struggled to know how to talk about this with children. I was like, am I going to get upset? Is it bad if I get upset? How do I tell them that this is not good news, but give them enough hope and reassurance? Honestly, it was just an awful time. And this is kind of how, the journey of books that help us evolved. I think a book can be a framework. Obviously, I would always recommend that you read it yourself. If you're going to use a book therapeutically, read it yourself. Make sure you get to know it really well and that it's the right book, for you to share. But really what you're giving people is like a little framework, a little, I don't know, an experience that you can look at together that's non-threatening, not too intimidating. It's about somebody else's problem. It's another character. It's not yours. So there's some kind of distance between there. So I think it is as much for the grown-up to understand how you can talk about things with children. It's upskilling parents and grown-ups and how to talk to children about these things, which are actually really challenging. And there's no right or wrong way to do it. But like you said earlier, this is a starting point and it opens discussion that can be then led by the child. If things crop up, you can continue that conversation, and it might not, and that's fine too. But it's just it's a helping hand, I guess, for these really, really horrible things that happen sometimes in life.
Absolutely. I think as well, you kind of touched on it there, and this is kind of leading on to my next question. I think on the website as well, you've kind of put, for anybody that's maybe not an educator, maybe just a parent who, like you say, doesn't quite understand what's the best way of approaching it using a storybook, you've actually put almost like a set of instructions. I won't necessarily call it that, but you've given guidance. That's the word I'm looking for. You've given some guidance. Can you talk me through that a little bit?
Yeah, so how they are on the website is all thanks to Cara. So Cara has made them look lovely and accessible. I had just written a list, and they're now lovely visuals with illustrations by Rosa Moroney, who is a lovely illustrator. So they're really accessible, visual, beautiful to look at, and easy bite-sized ideas. From the top of my head, I think the first one is to read the book yourself. So, to read the book alone, first of all. Actually, I can probably pull them up and talk you through them. To always read the book yourself, because I think it's really important that you're in a good space if you're going to use the book and you're going to talk about themes. Choose the right time, somewhere comfortable, somewhere relaxing. You want the story to be like any other story and not feel as tense as it's possible. I think it's also good to be led by the child. So to show you're interested. She does look sad. I see that too. Just be positive and relaxed and reassuring, using emotional labeling if you can, like, oh yes, she does seem worried, and why do you think they might be upset? But really it's about the child taking the lead, and you positively commenting where you can. So at their own space and time, children can read through the story. If they don't want to talk about it or they don't want to finish it, I think that's absolutely fine. You don't want to sort of then you go undue stress or pressure, and it might not work. It might just be like, or they might just say, I like that story, that's the end. It's not every book is going to resonate with every reader. That's why there are lots and lots of reviews per category on there. So hopefully there is one book that you say, wow, that was just exactly what we needed. And as we said at the start of the podcast, it's about opening discussions. It's not a one fix for anything. That kind of fact, often it's so hard about these things in life. There is no solution to them sometimes. There is no thing that we can do to fix the difficult thing, but we can hold the hand and be there to support and just offer reassurance as you are uncovering something tricky. And I'm talking about the bigger themes here, I suppose, as opposed to something like, sharing, or a new sibling might be easier to find some kind of tools and techniques to help. But often it's just about holding space for that difficult thing, and connection between the grown-up and the child, I think, is also really important. And the books that I loved as a child the most, when I think about them, actually, it was more about who I read them with than it was actually about what I was reading. And so we're really giving a space for grown-up child to come together in holding space for something tricky, difficult, and just, we're facilitating what will happen, I guess, between the relationship between them.
I think you're definitely right about the connection part. I was in a nursery recently, and although it wasn't a book directly about any particular situation, it was a storybook, and the children were just enjoying the story. But the closeness and the connection they had with that educator showed that, if you've got the right person and that you've got that connection, you've got that bond. So whether it's a parent, whether it's an educator, the book is a powerful medium. These children wanted some time where they were just close. And that's, again, another important element of, books that help, is like having that closeness, having that bond, which is lovely. And I think it then, it shows that the pathway with a good storybook is, so powerful as well, isn't it?
So true. Yeah, so true. I mean, books and wellbeing, I think I will forever be chatting about the importance of books and wellbeing. In a really busy world, reading a book is a mindful activity. It's a quiet activity. And there's so much of the other stuff going on. It's really important to have that downtime. And building relationships is even better, as well.
Equally with certainly all the research that's coming out at the moment, and certainly the media jumps on it around the reading rates declining, reading pleasure, the levels of children potentially not even accessing a bedtime story. I think hopefully this helps parents. I know parents know there is more to reading than just sitting down, quickly getting through a school book or reading something, but equally, hopefully this helps them focus that time and see kind of the value in it as well, in terms of looking at things from a slightly different angle.
100%. It's the value as well that is so, so important. I mean, I've been lucky, and I think I've said it on other previous podcasts about things, but I was quite lucky that I grew up with parents that valued stories. But I mean, let's face it, I'm ancient, I'm about as old as the dinosaurs, but I grew up with parents that valued stories, and I had books upon books upon books. I still do. Like, you can't see the other side of my office where I've just got walls and walls of books, and I will continue to have books. But for me, it was that closeness, it was that bond. Like I said before, if my dad would read me a bedtime story every night, and there was that closeness and that feeling of security and comfort, but that understanding in that whole imaginative world as well. I think that's another important part, that the imagination of a book, and it kind of links to something I'd said previously, is the imagination of a book will then lead to questions, because the child's brain is then fizzing with all this imagination and powerful visuals that they've got in their head. And I think that's another powerful part, isn't it?
Yeah,
absolutely. And I think also just having a child being able to kind of relate to something as well. They think, okay, I'm facing this situation, and then they may see a character in a book or a story, and they think, actually, this character's going through this as well. And sometimes they might not even register the fact that their parents are reading it for a certain reason. I say this, a friend of mine actually her son's having a really tough time at school at the moment, and has the negative mindset, doesn't want to go to school. So I was straight on the website, I did flag the section, but I actually chose one of Claire's books and suggested that to help him with positive thinking and seeing things differently. And my friend has messaged me and said, she cannot tell me how much it just opened up the conversation. All of this stuff came out they didn't even know was happening. And that's been a really powerful tool to help him feel more positive, but also just share things he might not have shared because he recognized similar situations in the story to what he was going through. But if they just said, what's wrong? Why are you upset about school? Why don't you want to go? I think he would have just shut off and closed down. So it's nice for us as well, hearing the impact and seeing that as well. That's really important.
I think so. Like the way you're saying it there, my head was going, well, asking that question directly before anything else is like, what is wrong? They don't know. Their thoughts are all disordered. It's all jumbled up in there. But actually, like you say, they pinpointed, they almost like put a secure line onto those points within the book. And that helped them to process, like, hang on, that's me. Oh, that's me as well. That helped to order their thoughts. So when they then started talking about it after the book, it just shows how powerful this is, isn't it? I mean, Claire, just I know you're a children's author as well. You're an educator. Was that kind of your understanding when you started writing books? Was it you knew and understood the power of a good book, a good storybook?
I think I got to that point. I think there was certainly an element where I was writing because I was finding something tricky and I didn't understand how to do it. And writing was a way of processing my own thoughts and feelings. And I was like, okay, this is how I'm going to tackle this problem. And that's probably, yeah, like now that's how I think about writing books, especially theme-driven ones. I think, what do I want to say? What kind of pathway, what tools, what do I want to share that I think could be helpful? And that's kind of how I go about the writing of the books. But I also feel like there's something in even if you're not going through, something tricky in your life, some of these books especially are great just to read anyway, because it might be that you haven't got a new sibling, but there are other people who might be, and that empathy that books build, which obviously everybody knows about, is so important. So, you might still read a book on loss, even though you haven't lost somebody. There's a lovely one about a pet woodlouse that dies, or, you might read a book about divorce, even though your parents aren't divorcing. And so, check the book, obviously, and read it to make sure it's right. But there is something about understanding what other people are going through and building a kinder, more empathetic community and world, ultimately.
Yeah,
I think that's a really, sorry, Dad, I just add, in terms of representation as well, so I'm thinking of your nursery settings and having worked previously in school settings myself, like you said, that representation piece on a bookshelf, Claire mentioned the empathy, but also seeing these books and it's becoming and realizing that our society today isn't just very linear and very basic. We have that representation and lots of those books on the site. We have a section that's around celebrating difference, around neuroinclusion, all of these things that really should be on every kind of settings bookshelves anyway, as Claire said, not just to pick up a certain topic. So it might be useful in that way as well to do a bit of an audit of what's going on your bookshelves and settings as well.
Yeah, I mean that's really important as well. I think a lot of nurseries tend to focus on the same books. I mean, we've all got The Very Hungry Caterpillar. We've always got Where's Spot and Dear Zoo. Great classic books, but equally, like you say, Cara, it's doing that audit. And actually, sometimes you think, well, I want to be inclusive. I want to make sure that our community, that our nursery community and our wider community is represented within our bookshelves, and that educators can pick up a book and it will automatically speak to a member of our nursery community. But sometimes it's not knowing where to start, and it's almost like, I'm not going to call it a shopping list as such, your website, but there is that bit where you can go through and it's like, actually that one would be really useful, and that kind of speaks a bit more. And I think again it's just another powerful way that the website can be used,
Because we know how busy teachers are, so it definitely can be used in that way. Yeah.
The other section we've just added as well. So we've added the resources recently, and Claire also has done bookstops that help since it started, I think, Claire. So that champions independent bookshops. But equally, we started last month a feature called Authors That Help. So that is showcasing a particular author and kind of their entire catalogue of books. Again, that's a really good way of of kind of schools, nurseries, etc., just getting insight into authors they might not have heard of or seen. And like you said, I've been there. We've got all the same books, same authors, and that's something Claire and I are both really passionate about making sure others are championed as well. So we've already had a brilliant author. We've got so many brilliant ones lined up as well, and they do a short video snippet on our Instagram and on the website and in the newsletter, explaining why they write the books that they do. And I love it. I love the fact that we're championing that.
Yeah, I have to say that is quite an exciting bit for me, because I mean, I've had a quick scan through some of the sections, and actually I did go to the bit within the website with your featured author, and I'm like, not heard of them. I was straight on to certain online book retail, and I was like, oh, right, okay. Yeah, there are a few in my basket there as well. But I think that is helpful, because again, we get stuck in our traditional authors, and like, there's nothing wrong with that. But it's widening the voices that we're emulating within our settings, I think, is important as well, isn't it?
Yeah. And publishing is making moves to being as diverse and inclusive as possible, but there's still a lot of work still to do. So hopefully this will be a help in our little corner of the world too.
Definitely. I think as well that I'm a big advocate for stories and reading anyway, because as I say, I grew up with it, and for me it's an integral part of what we do. The settings that I support, again, readings and story, it's embedded right the way throughout the whole day. It's not just we focus on it at this time. It's like, well, any time is story time, and particularly like we were saying about some children don't have a bedtime story. Again, we try and focus on that, so when our younger one's going to bed, between lunch and going to bed, we have a story, because that's an ideal opportunity for it. But again, if a child wants a story, I think that's I think you said it before, Claire, it's being led by the child as well. It's being guided by the child. It's no point, I don't think, sitting a child down and say, right, we're going to read this story about the new baby, and this child's like, but I was right in the middle of playing over there, and you've just pulled me out. It's not going to work then, is it?
No, you want it to feel as natural as possible, as joyful as possible. Like, no one wants to be sat and taught a lesson. Like, that's the part of the reason why the books help, I think, because like Cara pointed out, you don't want to sit down and say, right, what's the problem? Let's talk about it. You want to kind of it to unfold and be led by the child. And I think it's more meaningful when, as it is any part of early years, teaching number, any kind, if you can get it down to the child's level, to their interests, they don't even realize perhaps that, what you might be talking to them about. It can go in different ways. You can be flexible with it. They could lead it somewhere different that you weren't expecting. All that good practice that you do in early years anyway can also be applied in the situation, I think, as well.
I'm gonna ask you both a really tricky question now. So, thinking caps on. So, I'm gonna ask you to pick one favorite book. You have to tell me the book and the topic. I know, I told you I was going to give you a tricky question. I should have probably given you a bit of warning about this one, but I wanted to catch you off guard slightly. But yeah, I think because you've got so many in there, Claire, I'll go to you first. What's your favorite book that you've reviewed or that you've used?
Can I do my most recent favourite one? Because honestly,
Yes.
there are, we must have hundreds of books on there. And they've been chosen for a reason, because we believe they could actually help people out there. But I read one recently by a debut author, and I just loved it. It was called Tiger's Last Roar, and it's about pet loss. So it's about the death of a cat. But there is, I'm sure, about imagination as well. It's not just, it's not so hard hitting as, your cat has died, which is still place for that kind of book. There's the fantastical element of it, and there's the theme of the cat being a tiger. They go into a jungle. They have crowns. There's lots to look at, lots to illustrate. So it could actually just be enjoyed as a story. There's a lot of adventure, a lot of colour, a lot happening. It's not just about the sadness and the hope that the child eventually finds. It's illustrated by Katie Cottle, and honestly, they are the cutest characters ever. And at the back, they've got some further resources if you are dealing with pet loss, some tips and things that you can talk to with children. And there's even like a little picture frame where you can draw pictures of your lost pets.
Oh, wonderful.
So I just thought it was all really well put together, beautiful, strong story, fantastic element which removes some of the hard-hitting themes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's got the educational but also the helpful and story. Nice mix. So that's Tiger's Last Roar by Harriet Howe and Katie Cottle. I picked that one.
Amazing, thank you. Cara, your favourite one?
Oh, there's so many to choose from, and I'm not going to say one of yours, Claire, even though they all are fabulous. There are lots of Claires on the website, but I will add that she does not just review her own books and put them on. Independent reviewers put Claire's books on, and she gets shouted out a lot, rightfully so. So I'll choose another one. So it's funny. Sometimes I read something and I'll message Claire straight away and say, right, I need to review this one for the site. And this is one relatively recently, and it's called I Can Do It By Myself by Carol Hart and Zoe Waring. And what is perfect for every nursery setting, every preschooler. I'm a mum to an 8-month-old. This is all coming for me. And it's all about that time when children start to become independent and do it for themselves. But the book is brilliant. So I'll say, for example, like the child is preparing their own breakfast, and like the parents in the book are being really supportive and they're like, yes, I'm so pleased. And then on the next page, you see the chaos that ensues for kind of parents trying to let them do it themselves. And it's that kind of contradiction. It reminded me so much of a nursery setting, and it's absolutely brilliant. So it helps parents in a way that is encouraging children to kind of be independent and have a go themselves. So that positive thinking and that growth mindset. But it's quite a good read for parents as well, because you kind of see the subtext and think, okay, great. I really want you to make your own toast, but I know it's going to be everywhere and down your top and stuff. So that's quite a fun one, and probably less hard hitting than some of the ones that are on the site. But that's a really good alternative one to some of the kind of traditional starting schools, starting nursery type books, which we had loads of requests for over last month. And I've done a resource sheet for that one as well. So yeah, I would say that one, but I was just scrolling back through and it was so hard to choose because like we said about how we choose them, some people approach us, but it's not a paid for entity, it's voluntary. So Claire and I genuinely put books on there that we love and we think will genuinely help. It's not like we get sent them and we review them for a reason. So this happens a lot, those quick WhatsApps where we're like, this is amazing, it needs to go on. So
no, it's brilliant.
That's a good one.
As well, I was thinking actually that book that you were talking about there, Cara, I think that's a good one to share with parents, particularly of like toddler age where they are. Exactly. I do it myself, and parents are like, no, and you're like, yes, this is why you need to do it, and this is what's going to happen. Be ready, but let them do it. I think that's brilliant.
It's brilliant. It's really good.
Well, do you know what? Time has crept up on us, I'm afraid, but this has been absolutely brilliant. I mean, I could talk about books all day anyway because they're just amazing. But Claire, will you give us a shout out? What's the website address? I know we'll put it in the blurb as well, but it's good to give it a shout out too.
Yep, it's www.booksthathelp.co.uk, and we're on Instagram as well.
Brilliant. Well, Claire, Cara, thank you so much for being part of Circle Time.